it suppose that this is the output, but it's not 100% guarantee, of course, is a flexible planning approach. So to promote a working city where one can reach green space, centralities, shops, amenities, services, and places of work within a 1 mile distance from the home. So sometimes you read 1 kilometer or 1 mile, again, it's quite flexible. I sometimes wrote 1 kilometer or 1 mile. And for centralities, we mean, let me define straight away because it's one of the main additional points to the previously proposed similar planning approach. So for centralities, we mean a place, an area in which you have all of the, it's similar to the central business district as a concept. So it has in a place where you can have a theater, a restaurant, banks, shops, workplaces, monuments, history sometimes. Now, this has been recently, last 2 months ago, it appeared in this article on the World Economic Forum, which I wrote together with David Bannister. And he was actually the first who, in his department at the University of Oxford, where, if I remember very well, I first showed this idea in a seminar, and a few years ago. And when there is a delay in the slides. I get stuck in a moment. Okay, this is another online article that you can find on my university, particularly Turin News. And this is something that you can find on the MIT Technology Review many years ago. Is Isobenefit lines is slightly related to one of the points behind Isobenefit urbanism. Okay, there are just a few pictures, a few scenery of one of these possible Isobenefit city. And in this case, we talk about a medium small town, as you can see. But the main concept is already there clear, is that we want to have an urbanity spirit, urbanity sense, meaning proximity, not necessarily density, but proximity. And then the same concept can be applied for single family houses, for villages or town or cities or mega cities, it doesn't matter. And you can see also this, the very sharp relation with nature. And of course, all pedestrian or without the cars, public transport and so on. Now, let's see this code to generate this Isobenefit urbanism. So the code is very, very simple, very basic. This is the so-called genetic code at the beginning, the morphogenetic code. So the rule number 1, each building should reach within 10 minutes, 20 minutes, here I indicated 50 minutes, walking the following. The ordinary daily points, meaning the workplaces and the shops, the schools and so on, and a centrality. So a centrality is what we meant before. A concentrated area in which we have restaurants, banks, theater, recreational activities and so on. And a natural area. I emphasize natural areas or green spaces because I want to involve not just the classical urban park, but the actual wild and Erasmus natural area. It could also be partially agricultural lands too. And the second rule is that buildings should be close under Erasmus because it's not a fixed rule. It's not within certain kilometer or certain meter. These are the concept that you can relax when you write the actual code in Python or whatever. You can decide how much you want this distance to be. So buildings are close to each other for at least 1 kilometer square. So close to each other is just want to avoid the urban sprawl, so to be completely dispersed. And at least 1 kilometer square because we want to create a minimum area, not to have the meaning, the genius logic, the spirit of the urban, not a suburban, infinite, endless area of nothing really, neither nature nor cities or towns or village atmosphere. And every centralities should be interconnected, well, by public transport, ideally the underground or sky train, because they will leave the land free for the natural area. And the other sub-point is natural areas should be interconnected, ideally interconnected. Then again, in some model, to relax, to make easier, you can also remove these interconnectivity rules. You can just keep minimum 1 kilometer square. And now, if we translate these verbal rules into a cellular automata, we can have a black cell for the building or the build area, like that. A white cell for the centrality. And you can, the simplified version, you assume that the ordinary daily points are already within a centrality. So this white cell is already a centrality and ordinary daily points, and the green for the natural area. I exaggerated the concept for emphasizing that, I mean, real nature too, not just urban park. Now you can see on the right, this vertical, these are, if you actually write on Python or whatever, if you write this code, this is the simulation that you may have by changing some parameters. And we will see this later. So you can also decide different level of density. You can see here the dark black is high density, the gray medium, the lighter gray is low density. And these are just other pictures to show what we actually mean for centrality, for green, and for built area. Here again. So this is the first point. Now we can see, okay, here there are some links. If there is time later or some question, we can show some of these. But we can see this first one, which is just a few minutes. There is also the audio, but you don't have the audio here because I will talk over. So let me open. Let me open like that. It should work straight away. No. Okay, let me open here then. So, like you can see here, this is the, in red, the other cars. Now let's remove the cars. Then let's remove the streets. And now let's change the position of the actual the buildings in a way that you can see within 1 kilometer, any points is within the green. Now these blue buildings are centralities. Again, they are all within 1 kilometer from any other build areas. And then you can connect the centralities with this sky train or underground. And in that way, you can have infinite scenario which satisfy this. For example, you change like that, again, they satisfy all these rules, or like that, whatever, it doesn't matter. So this is the flexibility of this approach. So you have one code and infinite outputs. There you have other videos that will let you see by yourself later if you want, they'll be longer. And the attention, I think, for this approach is not contrast, but this harmony, let's say, this mixing between planning and self-organization. And so these were, some of you will remember these planners. And so is between, from one side, we have this strong top-down planning approach, precise design, precise geometry, precise rule to follow, which generate issues that we all know. And the other side, in the other extreme of, we have the self-organized, no, the laissez-faire, the invisible hand, the let things be spontaneously, as this shape generated by the birds, which are not following any plan, any leader, but just very local rule and autonomous decision based on localized context and how many birds are around them and so on. So without planning, we actually generate some apparently order. And in this way, we have these macro rules, macro because from above, you know, they tell you, okay, where you can build and where not, but then you can actually do whatever you want. We will see now what we mean in the next slide. So one genotype, let's imagine that in his ideal or perfectly isotropic environments, the tree will grow up like that according to what is written in his own DNA. But in the context may change drastically the situation. So the same in this case for the cities. We have this code that we saw before, then according to the plan, according to the actual contingency or planning wishes, we can have different outputs. So let's start this. I will try to do quickly this. Let's try to do by hand. And the white is a centrality. The black are the actual buildings. And so let's say residences. And the white, you have all the daily points, workplaces, theater, schools, and so on. City center, a nice square, promenade. Now, the first rule, within a walkable distance, 15 minutes or 10 minutes, 20 minutes, it doesn't matter much, to a centralities. So between the black and the white cell, you should have 1 kilometer, no more. So you can build whatever around this 1 kilometer, and this rule is satisfied, right? There is no problem. So if we build outside it, as this, you can still do it, but you should add, it doesn't matter where, this is the flexibility, it doesn't matter exactly where, another centralities. Another centrality, for example, there, for example, in a way that is all covered by workable distance, you can reach your closest centrality, if you're lucky, even 2 centrality. Then the second rule is for the green, right? So the same between the black cell and the green cell, it should be maximum 1 kilometer or 1 mile. And so within this black cell here, 1 kilometer all around, you can build. It doesn't matter because you can still reach the green area. However, if you build outside that, as we did here, let me check. Let me check every cell. Let's select one that I will color in blue. It doesn't satisfy, right, this rule, because 1 kilometer, it doesn't reach any green. So something must be done. It doesn't matter where, you can do wherever here, for example, here. So within 1 kilometer, you can access the green area. Then you apply the same concept for the other points. So the other rule was at least 1 kilometer square continuously built. This is again to avoid that the model will implement a completely endless dispersed suburban. Okay, so 1 kilometer square, it doesn't matter the shape, it could be linear, it could be whatever. And again, so if you apply all these rules, so this example for the interconnector green. Let's imagine to this example. So the blue cell, for example, 1 kilometer is good. You can reach the centrality, you can reach the green. So it's okay. So what happens if I will build here in the next, 10 years, I decide to build here? And it doesn't work anymore because it cannot reach anymore at least 1 kilometer square interconnected grid. So I think you got the picture, right? So we have these rules that they apply all together to any cell. And you can implement this by hand, as I did for fun in this picture. You can see these are made by hand. So this is the time, the horizontal axis. This is the classical, I wrote classical and Erasmus to simplify. Of course, it depends from where, from when. It's not so easy. So this is the classical model. The scale reference there is 2 kilometers. You can see there my mouse maybe, 2 kilometers. Imagine that we start with the old town in which we will have the historical center and then buildings around. Then usually the darker is denser. And so usually something like that, right? The main core will grow up. At the same time, something here and there, they start emerging. Sometimes they emerge, sometimes not, it depends. New centralities emerges too, sometimes spontaneously, sometimes not. A lot of funds in Paris, for example. But usually it's not just monocentric, something like that. Now, if you do the same by following the Isobenefit Urbanism rule randomly, there is a random, or also called dendritic in other places, you can have this, or you can have this. There is called annulus cities, for example, but it doesn't matter the shape. This is called puntiform city. And this is a mixed puntiform or linear, whatever. So it doesn't matter, but they all satisfy the Isobenefit Urbanism criteria. And you can also have the same, if you click there, this is the current project that was mentioning at the beginning by UCL. And we won some small grants for developing this. And in this link, you can find both another link connected with a Python code and another one linked with a QGIS plugin that you can use also in the real planimetry. So this is the virtual case. By changing the parameters, now I will not explain the meaning of this parameter for the time, but for your curiosity, these are all the same inhabitants. You see 500,000 inhabitants, 500K hub. So they are all simulating the morphogenetic development of 500,000 city inhabitants, and the same surface available, just different parameters according to randomness, according to build adjacent or not, and so on. And you generate this different scenario, different topology. Then you can see this is the oil stain, I exaggerate the concept, the classical oil stain growth, a center core, several centralities, low density, usually in the suburban, the peripheral area, a bit denser inside, and so on. And this is the same population. This time is 2 million, 40 kilometers square. 40 kilometers per 40 kilometer in this square. Both side is 40 kilometer, and you can see the parameter there, different results, and you can quantify also the surface occupied. For example, here, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse. Anyway, on the left, there is the Isobenefit Urbanism development, and on the right, the same population, but following the classical and Erasmus growth. And here is the surface occupied by the green and by the built in the two cases. Now, this it wouldn't be such a surprise, because if you force to an higher density, it's also quite obvious that you have a much more green percentage available. However, it's not just that, but it's also closer to you, this green and this centrality. in this, you can see you can do the simulation by yourself. It's open source, the Python code, also the QGIS plugin. And this is showing the average distance from the centrality, from the closest centrality, and the average distance from the closest green. You can see Isobenefit Urbanism, it reaches 1 kilometer maximum by definition, and it must follow this rule. And in average is half kilometer away from the closest centrality, each cell, each residential cell, where the business as usual, look, is just with a population of 250,000, it reached quite quickly 5 kilometers distance for the centrality and more than 5 for the green, the maximum. So here you can see this graph is are the time steps. So the population increases at each step, could be here, or 10 years, depending on, let's say years. And here the meter. Now in blue here, in blue and orange is the classical, the business as usual, the classical growth. And the blue is the distance from the green. Look at how it's increasing. They start at the same level at the beginning when the city is very small. But then once the model reach higher dimension in terms of population, the classical model arrive at 2 kilometers far away from the closest green and for the closest centralities, while the others, they stabilize around half kilometer just away. It doesn't matter how big, you can carry on this, it can become a mega city. That's the interesting bit. It can become 10 millions, 20 million inhabitants, it doesn't matter. You still have within half kilometer in average. In half kilometer, you have your centrality and the green. Here again, this is another case. So before it was, you can see this was on dark, black dark was also a bit gray because lower density. Here you have the same density. So there is no even the justification to say, well, it's easy because if it's denser, of course you have, now you have more green and the green is closer to you. So we keep constant the density. Just we use the Isobenefit Urbanism growth and the business as usual. And again, you see the same. The Isobenefit growth is a stop at 500 kilometers, 500 meters, where the other you keep growing. The bigger, the more far away usually you have to walk to reach the centrality or the green. Here is the same slide of before, it's just more visible. And so, the last 10 minutes is from the environmental point of view and health point of view, is we can imagine about the benefits for this kind of approach in terms of emission related to the transportation, motorized transportation, the land use, the related climate change impact, but also the urban heat island effect. Now, if you recall well, me too, there can be up to 4 degrees difference, right, between the core of quite medium big cities and the external suburban area or green area around, which is quite a lot, 4 degrees, can you imagine? And you can change this just by changing where we are going to build these buildings. You remember the videos simulated before at the beginning on YouTube, even if it was small. And so we can reduce this. We can also reduce the risk for the inundation because you have more green surface, more natural surface available rather than cement, rather than rely to engineeristic structure for the absorption of the water. Evapotranspiration of the soil, anyway, you have a lot of type of benefits that you can think about of having a city like that practically everywhere, not just in historical center. And from an economic point of view, this is an example of a puntiform city, let's say, connected with SkyTrain. So you may reach the same economy of scale and agglomeration, the same of the equivalent number of inhabitants, but putting in a different, in the classical urban form model. But why the same economy scale? Because they are connected. So you can just, I don't know if you see my mouse, but if you are in one of these points, you just go to the closest centralities, then you get the SkyTrain or the underground or the tram if you really want to build the transport on the land. And in a few minutes, you reach any other location, any other centralities here. So it has a unique city. It's a bit similar to the concept of a polycentric urban region, but in a different scale, because here we're talking about units much closer to each other, not about different cities, very well interconnected without no hierarchical order. So you can reach the same economy of scale, but for economy of scale, we mean usually more money, even if recent research indicates that there is a kind of inequality in the distribution of this more money. No? I don't know if some of you is familiar with urban scaling, but if you study this, how factors in this case, the income or GDP of the city will change with the size in terms of population, usually is more than proportional. So you double the city size, you more than double the total GDP. However, the distribution is a different issue. It seems that is for the richer who get richer. And for the poor is almost nothing changed or even worse, because the other cost changes, but the income not much. Anyway, usually in total, you have more chance, let's say, to get richer. And you have more creativity. Also there are issues to think, there may be a self-selection bias there, meaning that usually it may be the case that more creative people that tend to be bigger city. But anyway, there are a lot of papers indicating that there may be a link with which is connecting the side of the city with creativity, because there are more people there. Usually it's also denser, so there are more opportunity to meet each other, to meet different skills and personality and so on. So more services, public transport, university, schools, opportunities to grow, etc., economically and socially in status and life experience. However, without pay the diseconomy, the cost of congestion, and which are familiar to us, right? Now we are getting better and better, but there are still the issue of congestions, of land use, and in these two pictures, I try to summarize what I was mentioning before in terms of emission, which even if not everyone agree, but they may increase more than proportional with the city size measured in population terms. And also quality of life. It seems that despite having more opportunity in cities, but surveys, they show also other type of analysis, especially the longitudinal one, which are quite indicative of the link, the causality of the link. It seems that they show that people prefer living in small towns rather than big city. Not everyone, but most of them. And however, they cannot because they lack the above, or because they want to get richer, or because they want the university, or because they want the services and so on, hospital or theater, cinema and so on. So this Isobenefit Urbanism, it wanted also to offer a way to avoid this compromise that we are forced to do. I said we unconsciously, because I'm one of them that not always, but often tend to prefer the small size of the cities. However, not often, not always. And they don't have to compromise, to balance, to trade the size of the city and the opportunities, the livability in terms of quality of life, nature, and workability, no congestion, fresh air, birds, singing birds, nature that you can see every day. You don't need to compromise this with the university, with an university degree, or with good opportunities for your career, or with the possibility to go to the hospital, to the theater, or to meet different type of peoples, different type of personalities, and so on. And okay, a last note. I have 5 minutes left. And last note in this table, I try to summarize chronologically the walking city approach. I call walking city. Nowadays is more involved the term X minus cities. And so we can go, you see, quite far away in times. And here in bold, I emphasize 1 mile, for example, the Garden City already. It was mentioned within 1 mile. Now, within less than 1 mile, you should be able to reach what is listed here: amenities, workplaces, and so on. Then other concept, probably very popular to you too, the one of Perry, the neighborhood units, again, within a 1/4 mile. Now you should reach shops, schools, parks, etc. So it's not really new from this point of view. Well, Jane Jacobs, I mean, you don't need any introduction about that. Now she promotes the dense, mixed use, walkable areas. New urbanism also in general, many, I just wrote many because again, here they talk about within walking distance, many activities. They were generic, there were many activities. This is the principle 5 and 12 in the charter of the new urbanism. Then again, in the urban charter, there is another concept, and he mentioned 10 minutes or a 1/4 mile walk neighborhoods within which you can reach the daily activities, dwelling, working, and leisure. Then the traditional neighborhood developments, also this concept is quite popular. They emphasize 1/4 mile. So within 1/4 mile, you should be able to reach retail shops, schools, and workplaces. And then we have transit-oriented development. So the pedestrian pocket, again, it doesn't specify the minutes, the time, the kilometer, but within walking distance from public transport, so high capacity rapid transit, you should be able to reach office, retails, daycare, recreation, and parks. Then other concept, urban villages, again, walkable. Then more recently, 2012, the 20 minutes complete neighborhoods. They mention about walkable access to school, parks, and transit. Then 2012, compact urban cells is in the TED talk. They mentioned a few minutes there. 20 minutes walk, so within 20 minutes walk, you should reach most of what people want. I like this definition. And then, 2013 was the first time that has been published the Isobenefit Urbanism. In this original paper, which is in Arcs, even in Futures, it was mentioned this definition. And 2013, each point can reach continuous natural areas, job locations, centralities, shops, amenities, and parentheses, recreational, medical, cultural, and usually daily activities by 15/30 minutes walking or within 50 minutes biking. Then there was the 30-minute cities a few years later. Then 50 minutes walkable neighborhoods a few years later. And then the 50-minute cities from 2016. And so from this table, you can see that the concept itself to reach in a walkable distance daily activities is not new. However, what I think is new here is the shape you can see is the links between the built area and the green area. You know, this constant proportion between the green, not just the distance, but the proportion between the green and the built area. It doesn't matter the size of the city, and also the centrality. So the concept of centrality, not just activities, but an actual area where you can go there to enjoy an evening walk after dinner, or in your break for working. And okay, so I think I finished my time. I talk 42 minutes. And if you have some questions.
Thank you very much, Luca. It's a wonderful presentation. Very thorough and very clear, and interesting to see the application of computation to bring our city more back to integration with nature. Seeming paradox, but actually something that aligns quite well. So we'll open the floor now for questions, both from our in-person audience as well as to those online. For those of you joining online, if you want to pose a question, you have two options. You can either raise your hand and then I'll grant permission to use your microphone to share your question, or you can type into the Q&A function. So while those online prepare, does anybody in person want to ask a question of Luca? Sam, please.
Question. No one else has got one just yet. Thank you very much, Luca. That was I love walking in cities, and it was yes, super exciting to see your method in trying to kind of help that become a more common reality. My question relates to, I think you made a really good kind of argument at the end, showing this long discourse of why walkability is such an important factor in cities, and then your work is it priorities kind of proximity as a way to kind of bring that about. And I wondered if that is enough, or whether there are kind of other forces that we need to kind of tackle, because what I could sort of imagine is removing cars from the urban environment. You can create really walkable neighborhoods, but at the same time create a perfect opportunity for kind of micro mobility, where we're using kind of mini electric vehicles like scooters, which still take energy to run, don't necessarily have health benefits. So there's, I think, a kind of maybe what I'm asking is it also part of our jobs as urban designers to make it harder to do alternatives to walking, if that makes sense?
Yes, thank you very much. So let me see, I'm going to make harder. So the first, okay, thank you, because you remind me that I should have emphasized, you mentioned about proximity. I don't remember if I said this, but this it wants to actually focus on proximity rather than density. So it's not, because you know there are a lot of discussion, pro and cons against density. And I think density is not really an issue, because you can apply this method also to at the village level. And I can see this very well in the village where I often live in the UK. And actually, I also showed this an example in one of my papers about Isobenefit Urbanism. Anyway, proximity rather than necessary heavy and higher dense environments is the key for Isobenefit Urbanism. Now, to reply to your question, to the other part of the question, yes, I think that now we as, I'm not urban planners, even if I would like to do one day something practical, but let's say we urban scholars and urban planners, no, we should create better lives for practically every one of us, because apart a few that live in the cottage in the middle of nowhere, we all live somehow between a rural village and a mega cities. So in the way how we design our cities, we can literally change our life of everyone, not just the planner. So we are even quite responsibilities. And it seems, unless someone absolutely loves to be in the traffic, congested, sit down in a car for 3 hours per day, 1.5 hours, unless this, which usually is not the case, we should do our best to limit this only way to be able to move within the cities by car, and this ideally, yes, by walking or bicycle or public transport. That is, and we should solve this by, how to say, a monte, we say, so at the origin of the problem, which is where we locate things. Because if we try to solve this at the beginning, is much easier later, right? The job, rather than later, okay, how we make this reachable, this location reachable without the cars, by public transport, by walking or by bicycle, is a bit complicated after. So by this, I think, I hope that at least for the next cities, that there are a lot of billions of new cities in the next decade. So at least for that cases, we can use alternative models as Isobenefit Urbanism or other models, doesn't matter, as long as we generate something which is pleasant to live and to move within. So yes, I was a bit silent at the beginning when you used the word make it harder. I don't want to make it harder. I want to make it is the same, but as an approach, no, I don't want to make it harder. I know against. I want to make it easier. The other way is a bit is the same the goal, but the spirit is less active, less aggressive against, and just within the city, of course, because outside the city is quite pleasant not to go still by car without congestion in places that cannot be reached by public transport. So I'm mostly focusing within the city.
Thank you, Luca. I appreciate this approach of using the carrot rather than the stick. We have another question here from an online audience member, Christopher Rogers. If you'd like to speak your question.
Yeah, hi. Okay, it's Chris Rogers because the system doesn't like me using my abbreviated name. So, Chris, Luca, yeah, thanks for the presentation. Obviously, I've heard it several times in different ways, and I do think it's inspiring each time. The question really is around the polycentric idea that you were showing, and it relates to the more major things that you might find in well, often in city centres, but those facilities, let's call them, that wouldn't be expected to be distributed evenly across the place. So I'm thinking of major theatres or art galleries, financial sectors, maybe medical, a concentration of medical facilities, possibly retail, sports and leisure, nightlife, eateries. Would you see that within a polycentric pattern, you might have effectively areas of specialism? So there would be an arts centre, there would be a medical centre, a retail centre, and so on. And places would be renowned for that, and people could get to them relatively straightforwardly because, as you said, these polycentric areas are linked. Or would you be then looking to try to create a mix? And the last point then is economically, do those people who offer those types of facilities, do you think they would be attracted to a distributed regime or a some form of central regime?
Thank you very much. Actually, thank you very much. Actually, it was at Christopher Rogers' department, I think the very first time that I presented that many years ago. I'm very happy to see you here. So So yes, this question is actually is also relevant and crucial because at the beginning, when I discovered the Polytechnic urban region, and thanks to Frank Van Oort at Erasmus University Rotterdam when I was there, 2014, and he introduced me this. And at the regional level, yeah, there is this issue between having a center specialized, so rather than in a competition among each other, but with different specializations. So they don't compete, but they just complement themselves, let's say. However, I think that in that way, you create ghettos, actually, no? And I would like to see, an industrial city, university city, just because it may be a bit, well, for several reasons. And so I was thinking, especially at the within city level, so not regional level, but within city level, you may have really neighborhoods, ghettos, if you have specialized centralities. Now, I knew that spontaneously, we are just writing a paper that we should send soon, in which I briefly showed these spontaneous emergence of centralities and the forms and shape. And so spontaneously, yeah, usually they don't arise evenly, the city center, unless you actually plan, as at the France in Paris. And there was a long discussion at the time if it was a good idea or not. And anyway, and often spontaneously, they tend to specialize. And however, in my idea, even if I'm not an expert about urban economics, but in my ideas, I would like to have mixed used centralities, in which in each centralities you have, as I am now, at the moment I'm in Lingotto, which is part of the Polytechnic of Turin, but is spread, this Polytechnic of Turin, in different areas of the cities, at least 5, I think, and not all in the center. So you offer this type of opportunities of enjoying the same type of amenities, in this case cultural, and in different neighborhoods. So you call, I don't remember the name in English, we call it succursale in Italian, different brands, I think, right, of the same company. So, of course, it depends for the object. If you talk about hospital or some industrial, heavy industry, it's not possible, right, to have the same thing spread, because you need to have the physical proximity. But in a lot of services nowadays, you can do this. You can have brands of the same company in every centralities. So technically, is a difference between the vertical web and horizontal web, if I remember well the terminology. And talking about a type of in the same center, in each center, to have different things rather than centralized. And these, I'm aware that we need to have a touch of planning sometimes, otherwise spontaneously it may go the other direction.
Thanks, yeah. And it raises this issue of we should be empowering our planners in the way that they do things, so that we can bring these things about, rather than turning to our planners more as policing representatives, I guess. So yeah, I mean, chimes really well with the work we've been doing at the University of Birmingham on livable cities. So thanks for the answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luca. One other question in the crowd? Given the hybrid format, please step to the computer so they can see you.
Hello. My name is Hulusi Çelebi. I would ask a very short question. In the definition of Isobenefit Urbanism, there is no You have a poor, you have different people with incomes, poor and rich people, of course. And there is, in definition, I can't see any aspect which is related with these people. I mean, nowadays in the cities, we have a big problem, and that is the poor people or the people with a low income are expelled from the city centers. We see it in every European city, this problem. And this problem became bigger in these times. Is there some solution in this concept for that problem? Or can we expand the definition of Isobenefit Urbanism in order to bring some solution for that big problem? Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, you actually touches the very origin in my mind of this model, because I originally thought about that where was many years ago. Was when I was when my ex-girlfriend was living in a place that where to reach, I had to pass a nice area of this Turin cities. And then we're talking about more than 15 years ago, I think 10 years ago. And actually 20 years ago, yes. And each time I was thinking, I said, man, look at this area in which there were such a very poor buildings and very nothing really outside, very sad street. It was really depressing. And so I was thinking, but how we can allow this, How we as urban planner, because to get the poorer richer is another issue that is so complicated, it is another area, another domain. But at least for the city level, for the city point of view. So I was thinking, and in fact, if you can see the very first article about Isobenefit Urbanism is still on Archive. It's still unpublished. I haven't sent anywhere, I think. And it was in 2013. And the title itself, it was emphasizing this aspect. And to offer at least a better urban environment to the poorest. Because maybe they cannot have a rich house, maybe they cannot have the furniture of gold or the terrace with the I don't know what, but at least to live in a pleasant, ideally equally pleasant urban area. I knew that this sounds utopic, and maybe it is, maybe it's impossible to do in reality. I don't know about that, but maybe if you follow this type of principle, you can have at least the green. Then, of course, it depends on the quality of the green. But if you talk about natural area, is a bit more easy. It's a bit easier to have equally nicer natural area. And also the access to centralities. Yes, you can have nicer centralities than other. That is still an issue to solve. But at least I would like to offer to everyone with this model the possibility to enjoy a nice walk and a nice promenade in the evening by walking, rather than be obligated to be marginated in a very poor suburban area because you have to live there because the flats are too expensive in the nicer area, and usually the centralities in the nice center are in this area usually. So you are cut out from that even.
Great. That's exactly on our time. So very well, Luca. I'm sure people probably have more questions, but we'll close the talk here. If you'd like to know more, feel free to reach out to the Martin Center Seminar Series at martincenterseminars@aha.cam.ac.uk. I'd also like to take this opportunity to invite you to our upcoming seminars. We have another event this evening in conjunction with the School Design Study Group with Professor Ola Oduku. We'll be talking about New Hope for School Design in Africa. And then next week we have, at the same time, but in lecture room 1, a talk with Professor Henrik Schoenfeld from the University of Kent. We're talking about how architects can act as a foster parent for change in light of the climate crisis, and referring to some of his work with the House of Parliament renovations. So much to look forward to. But let's end on this utopic note of equal access for all, brought by Isobenefit Urbanism. So thank you, Luca, again, for joining us.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.